What's up, MetaNerds? This video is all about the First Order Probe Droid. Like most of the FO's ships and vehicles, the droid is an improvement on the Imperial predecessor, the Viper Probe Droid. Both are deadly, and something about their design conjures up a sort of primitive fear, but of course the Viper will always have the better sounds. But the head of the FO probe is sleeker, less bulbous, and works very similar with this ring of photoreceptors, each of them processing data at different wavelengths. Now the Viper would be fired in a pod that contained a hyperdrive and sublight engines. This pod would crash into a location and open up to safely release the probe. The FO probe droid, on the other hand, goes for a more streamlined approach, putting the thrusters in the unit. It isn't clear if the technological advancements over the decades allowed for a smaller hyperdrive unit to be inside of the FO probe. I would guess they did, since you need to send these across light years of space, and you aren't doing that with sublight thrusters. Again, looking at the Viper's hyperspace pod, it isn't like it's enormous, so thinking it was small enough to fit inside of one in a single unit isn't that big a stretch. By having these legs closed to a point, the thrusters could act as descent control. And then by having each of them open, it was more maneuverable when flying around. But it was designed around the idea of being able to smash through structures and ships, open up, and deploy its little army of smaller probe droids. This is a similar concept to the Droid-class boarding ship that was used by the CIS during the Clone Wars. The smaller probes were similar to training remotes that were often used in Jedi Saber training. So the FO probe droid dropped the need for a separate delivery pod, and instead became a delivery pod for at least 7 smaller probes. Each of them packed a punch equivalent to a light blaster pistol, though it does seem like the main unit has lost that powerful little blaster packed by the Viper. Of course, that doesn't mean it can't just use its thrusters to ram its metal dome into fleshy meatbags. What's cool is that although it doesn't appear to have the manipulator arms of its predecessor, you can see that there are some arms when the legs open up. I'd have to say that the Viper still remains more creepy, but the FO probe seems to be both more streamlined and more efficient. It's nice to have the ability to let the smaller probes fan out and search the area quicker, especially when you're searching for hostiles. The only problem I have with this thing is that although the whole idea of spearheading into a building or ship is awesome, you would think it would angle the thrust towards the top and use the point like a spearhead, and then perhaps even keep pushing with those thrusters to break through. But by the way they look now, it seems like they're just for letting it fly around. And the fact that they're perfectly set up for descent control may mean that they were fired out of some sort of probe droid railgun. Cool idea, but needing a purpose-built ship or device on a ship undermines the seeming advancement away from the Viper, which needed its own pod for delivery. A rail system like this would still be more efficient than having to either waste a pod each time you fired a Viper, or go back and collect all the pods and the Viper, but it's still not as efficient as the FO probe droid could be. What do you think about it? Does it look cool enough? And do you go as far as to say it's cooler than the Viper? Or is this just an unnecessary upgrade by the First Order? Definitely let me know in the comments down below. As for behind the scenes facts, this image is actually a concept art from episode 7. There it was intended to be in a scene where it would drill through the stone walls of Maz Kanata's castle. You can see in this artwork where the enormous drill would be, that was later replaced by the smaller drones of the final version. But I like to hope that the drill version will also exist in canon one day, and that they're just different variants. And the FO probe droid was officially introduced in the Resistance TV show, in the episode The Core Problem. The design for it was actually made by Doug Chang, who's responsible for a lot of the greatest stuff in Star Wars. But that's it for the probe droid. If you want to connect with us, help support the channel, be sure to check out the links in the description. Special shout out to our supporters over on Patreon. But most important of all, remember, accurate probe data is what empires are built on, and the Force will be with you, always.